Persuasion.
Manipulation and Mind Deception Exposed. Written by Norton Raven. Narrated by Stephen Lowe.
Introduction. There are many times in life when we want to persuade others of the value of a particular idea, concept, or product. Understanding what persuasion is can be very useful in the workplace or if you have a big family. In business, there is a lot of competition for customers and trade. If you know how persuasion works, then you will be able to have an edge when it comes to marketing. Persuasion is a process by which a message induces change in beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors. This is the most general definition of what persuasion accomplishes. However, with respect to marketing, it is the process by which a marketing campaign induces a change in a consumer's belief so that they believe your product is better than anything else on the market. So how is this exactly accomplished? The trick is to break down a person's train of thought when you are trying to persuade them about your product or service. Take the cosmetic industry, for instance. It's all about being seductive, attractive, and wanted. Most times, they use celebrities because somehow women think that being like them is the best thing. If they are rich and famous, then to be rich and famous is to copy their behavior, right? I recently saw a commercial from L'Oreal, and they repeated the message, "You're worth it," about 5 times at the end. Why? Because they wanted the women to feel good about themselves, and therefore buy the product. Any factors that help clear the hurdles in the persuasion process increases the likelihood of them coming one step closer to purchasing your product or service. This is just a basic route to keep in mind. However, it is enough to get you thinking like a consumer, which will eventually lead to a flawless marketing campaign. Today, you can easily spot persuasion techniques being used by famous politicians. They learn exactly the means and methods of making people believe in the value of their words and knowledge. This information has been adapted over the years by various companies who want to capitalize on psychological marketing techniques. How people make decisions. Many people find it difficult to make decisions in life. I'm not talking about the day-to-day decisions like what to eat or where to go out. I'm talking about the bigger decisions in life. Should I date this person? Should I buy or rent this house? Where should I travel to? What should I do for a career? Think about what you do when you make a decision. Do you make the decision on your own or do you get other people to make it for you? Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk with your parents or other people about different options that you are thinking about. Just make sure you are the one who is making the decision and not your parents, for example. Let's take career, for example. A lot of people are unfortunately overly influenced by their parents when it comes to choosing a career. If dad's a lawyer, then there's a good chance he will put pressure on his children to pursue a certain career path in the law as well. We see this a lot with people's parents who are in medicine or engineering, but it can happen across all industries. Let's take the area of romantic relationships. How often is it the case that the son or the daughter wants their parents' approval for the person they are dating? What do they do when deciding whom to date? They often ask their friends if they think it's a good idea. How is this making your own decision? You have got to question the whole idea of true love. If other people are making the decision for you. You might think that such a common thing like making a decision doesn't matter, but it can really provide you with an insight into whether you have developed your own personality or not. As a human, you are human, right? We make decisions every moment of every day. Most of the time, the decision is to keep doing what you've been doing. The truth is that every waking moment we are faced with literally millions of decisions. You could continue this sentence to the end. Or you could do about 1 billion other things. There are probably 10 easy-to-do things you could think of doing right now where you are sitting. Do them in all various combinations, and you've got well over 1 million options. However, most of this is always under our conscious awareness. If we had to consciously choose what to do every second of every day, we'd go insane. The obvious conclusion, then, is that most of our decisions are unconscious. This is very important to know if you are intending to persuade somebody. You see, whenever you communicate, it's generally to persuade somebody. Even when you call your buddy on the phone, it's to get them to buy into your way of thinking. If you try to persuade people from a logical, Spock-like standpoint, it might work. But then again, it might not. Think of your favorite commercials on TV. Do they show the product and give a dry dissertation about all its uses and the probability of achieving your outcome should you decide to use their product? Not likely. What do they do instead? They just show happy people using the product in happy situations. The subconscious message is that if you use this product, you'll be happy too. They usually don't say how specifically that will happen, but it works well enough that advertisers have been using this method for years. If you want to persuade people and you don't have a staff of actors at your disposal, what can you do? Plead and beg? Show pictures of happy people in magazines while you're talking about your ideas? Luckily, there's another way. There is a collection of language patterns that are very persuasive because they allow you to slip your ideas under their conscious radar. Beyond that, they let you slip ideas about your ideas under their conscious radar. Let's go to the TV commercial. Showing those smiling bikini girls next to your product is not really saying anything about the product itself. It's making a complicated argument about that product. Namely, that using this product makes you happy. The idea they're really slipping into your brain is an emotionally satisfying one. And that is exactly what you could do with these language patterns. Take any idea or suggested course of action, covertly attach it to a positive emotion, then slip it right into a conversation so that nobody notices. They'll notice the good feeling, think it came from thinking about your ideas, and then decide that your idea is a good one. As human beings, we would like to think that we make decisions. We scrutinize and evaluate the information that we're given and then ultimately make a logical decision based on our evaluation. In reality, however, nothing could be further than the truth. Human beings are very rarely making decisions that way. Most of the time, our decision-making process takes place without us even realizing it. This is because, as I said before, living in the age of information, there is just not enough time for anyone to really evaluate every single piece of information that comes our way, and then decide what they're going to do with it. Let's face it, thinking is hard work. There are so many things in life to think about that to consciously ponder every single decision that you're going to make is almost impossible. So instead, what we have are mental shortcuts that we use to dissect all of this information and make rapid decisions. These shortcuts appear in the form of preconceived ideas about what we believe or how we believe certain things should be when we come across something that involves making a decision. We subconsciously cross-reference it with all the preconceived notions and belief that we have, and then we make a decision. Much research has shown that over 90% of the reason behind a person's decision to make a purchase on something is associated with a decision that takes place on a subconscious level. What that means is that most of the time when we buy something, we're doing it for reasons that we really haven't fully developed in our conscious minds. What that means is that most of the time when we buy something, we're doing it for reasons that we really haven't even fully developed in our conscious minds. Now, there are many reasons why people don't really think about making decisions. It could be the fact that with so much information available, people get overwhelmed, or sometimes the decision really isn't going to impact our lives that dramatically, or that it just simply doesn't involve much research or thinking. The bottom line is that as humans, we love taking shortcuts because it makes the mental work much easier. How many times have you walked into a store and relied on the salesperson's advice or brought a friend along to get their opinion when buying something? Most people will never admit this, but many of us can buy something just because of the way it looks or because of the label that's on it. Have you ever purchased a piece of clothing because of the manufacturer's name, as opposed to investigating the quality of the clothing and the fabric itself? Realize this. You can never really logically understand why human beings behave in a certain way, because we are not logical people. Instead, we are emotional people making decisions, primarily based on emotions, but thinking we are logical. Therefore, the only way to predict how most people will behave is to organize them in groups, provide some sort of stimulus, then monitor the response. These are known as studies, and most of the time, the results that they provide prove how illogical people really are. Countless psychological studies have shown people react more to the way that information is presented to them rather than the content of the information itself. But in a world where people are driven primarily by emotions, logic does have its place. Different sales approaches. At some point in your sales cycle, your prospect has decided they have a need, hopefully because of your world-class probing skills. As you try to help them move from need through analysis and finally decision time, just what are they thinking? At a conscious or subconscious level, buyers are always trying to get comfortable with the balance of performance, image, and price, PIP. Think of these three drivers as concepts that are perceived differently by each of us. Also, understand that perceptions change over time. In our current economy, we must all recognize that the relationship between these three drivers will be changing dramatically. Marketing must understand these shifts and adapt products and messages that will be appealing. Sales will have to rework sales presentations, ask new questions, and think more about the answers they are hearing. So what are these three concepts and how should I deal with them? Performance. For consumers, this concept is going to change dramatically. Think about the most expensive purchases a consumer makes. A home. Bigger is better is a dead concept. Consumers will not sacrifice long commutes to work in trade for a McMansion. Certainly, families form, expand, and contract, so actual space needs will change. But the concept, bigger is better, is gone. For business buyers, there will be a similar shift. Product/service claims will all be tracked. Proof will be examined. Investments that will not deliver a return for years will not be purchased. If you thought companies were short-sighted before, you haven't seen anything yet. Image. This concept is alive and well. Image is alive and well, but constantly changing. For consumers, the image is more about what something means to me. For the home buyer, they may want a similar home closer to work, but they will still want that home packed with what is important to them and their lifestyle. Some images may become anti-conspicuous. If you don't think companies will change their views on image, I have one question for you. Would you apply for a job selling corporate aircrafts today? Price. Despite the tone of this posting, I do not believe that price will come before all other drivers, but price must make sense. Consumers may be ready and willing to buy, but are wary about their ability to buy. Staying with the home purchase example, there is pent-up demand for quality, newer homes, but the fear of the unknown continues to keep these buyers on the sideline. Hyundai has done an excellent job in addressing this fear with their recent Assurance Plus program. For business, there will be a categorical shift. If your product is directly related to their product/service core offering, then your value proposition will get traction. If you cannot prove this direct correlation, price will become more important to the buyer. So the buying process is the same, more difficult certainly. The shift will be in the buyer's perceptions and balancing of performance. Image and price is going to change dramatically for the next several years. Consumer preferences will shift, and so will business buyers. If your sales presentation was about performance and image, and you dismiss pricing as an issue, you are going to have a very difficult time in the coming months. Archimedes said, "Give me a place to stand, and I will move the earth." I have always loved that quote, but for the time being, the earth is shifting, and so should your sales approach. There's no one best sales approach. Your personality and background will determine which type of sales technique is most effective for you. Even if you have a methodology that works well, it is a good idea to try a different approach now and then. Trying new methods keep you out of a rut, and you may be surprised by how well a new sales approach works for you. In fact, many salespeople do the best by using a combination of approaches. The instant buddy. People feel better about buying from someone they like. Salespeople who use the buddy approach are warm and friendly, asking questions and showing interest in their prospects. They try to connect on an emotional level with each prospective customer. This approach can be very effective, but only in the right hands. Usually, salespeople who are naturally warm-hearted and love making new friends. Don't try this approach with a prospect unless you mean it. People can tell if you're faking it, and they'll be very unhappy with you. You will also need to do some follow-through to demonstrate that you do like and care about the prospect. For example, if you chat about the prospect's 11-month-old baby during your appointment, you should follow up by sending a card and small gift or both on the child's first birthday. The guru. Salespeople who prefer a more logical and less emotional approach set themselves on the task of becoming experts in anything and everything related to their industry. They position themselves as problem solvers. able to answer any question and tackle any issue that the prospect lays before them. The guru approach requires plenty of work learning the relevant information and keeping up with changes in your industry. But if you're willing to put in the time it takes, you could do very well both in selling to your prospects and generating plenty of referrals. Once customers realize what a great resource you are, they're quite likely to send friends and coworkers with questions straight to you. The consultant. This approach combines the guru and the buddy approaches. The salesperson who elects to use the consultant approach presents himself as an expert who has the consumer's best interest in mind. She knows all about her company's products, and by asking a prospect a few questions, she can match him up with the best product for his needs. As an approach that combines the best qualities for the first two methods, it's extremely effective, but it also requires a great deal of time and effort on a salesperson's part. You must be both knowledgeable and able to make an emotional connection with your prospects. If you can manage both of these feats, your sales will take off like a rocket. The networker. Networking can be a big help for any salesperson. The dedicated networker takes it to the next level, setting up and maintaining a web of friends, coworkers, salespeople from other companies, customers and former customers, and anyone else he meets. A strong enough networker will create an ongoing flow of warm leads that can provide most or even all the salesperson's needs. With this approach, you'll spend a great deal of time cultivating people. It's a highly effective technique for salespeople who enjoy attending various events, parties, and so on, and meeting new people. Just remember that you'll need to respond by doing favors and sending leads back to the people who've helped you in their turn. The hard seller. Described as scare the prospect into buying. The hard seller approach is what gives salespeople a bad reputation. Hard selling involves getting someone to buy a product even though he doesn't want or need it. Methods range from bullying, buy this now or you'll feel stupid tomorrow, to manipulation. If you don't buy from me, I'll lose my job, to outright deception. This product has a much better safety record than the competition. No ethical salesperson should use a hard sell approach. Sadly, there are still salespeople who use this type of sales strategy, even though the result is a customer who never buys again and sooner or later a bad reputation for the company as a whole. Stick with one or more of the first four approaches. They are all both effective and ethical. Soft sell. Many customers appreciate the soft sell approach when they just need some guidance in deciding on a selection. The seller can use gentle persuasion or suggestion to convince the buyer. Soft sell techniques include pointing out that many of the items were sold last week, recognizing a certain model that costs less, or saying that you certainly bought the same product and are happy with it. No pressure is issued. You state facts and allow the buyer to decide. Solution selling. Buyers might have problems in choosing the right product, whether it's finding a unique gift for a special occasion or purchasing a car that fits their specific needs. Solution selling defines the problem by asking relevant questions and listening to the customer. Some salespeople depend on talking to sell, but solution selling involves asking many questions and listening carefully. Questions can help to get the root out of the customer's problems and give the salesperson a clear idea of what to sell. Customer personality. Some sales techniques focus on understanding the different type of customers. Friendly types may seem easy to sell to, but they might hesitate when it comes to decision-making because they don't want to upset anyone. It takes reassuring the customer to make the sale. Other customers are wary of salespeople. You need to provide a great deal of information while sticking to the facts to allow them time to consider buying. Extroverts are enthusiastic, so they could take up too much of your time. You need to keep your presentation short, but outgoing types can be easily distracted and slow to buy. Follow up with emails or phone calls and stress the benefits enthusiastically. Many sales training courses include understanding customer personalities. Convincing people to do things. Convincing someone to believe and or accept an idea or thought is more important than you might think. Trillions of dollars of the world's economy relies on this one word, influence. From persuading people to buy things to persuading to obey the law, convincing is the all-important part of human interaction. You see, Without the ability to convince the world, be an ideal place as everybody would have their own belief system, and the inability to spread intellectual property would leave us in a world of chaos. So what makes us convince people? Over the years, scientists and psychologists found out a very important part of our brain which keeps us from buying into everything. How bad would that be? This mechanism is called subconscious rejection, an instinctive barrier that keeps us from believing everything told to us. And the key to the ultimate convincing power is to bypass that. Now, there are the basics like giving facts, and they go as far as mind control and hypnotism. The spectrum of techniques are endless. Check out your nearest store and see how the salesperson tries to convince you. The obvious but really powerful one is giving facts. Of course, to do that, your belief should have to have some sort of logic about it. You can't just run around and say the sky is falling and expect everyone to believe you. There is, however, a drawback to that. You should try to always convince the ones with the least knowledge in that criteria you're trying to convince him or her into. For example, it would be harder to explain to an adult that fire is cold than to a small baby. So always try to possess more knowledge than your subject. But that's not the only thing you can do to make someone believe you. Sources are also very important. It not only shows your expertise, but also makes the subject doubt less about the truthfulness about the facts. Apart from the facts, when you're selling an idea, you're selling yourself. Things like good body language, nice voice, and appropriate looks will help make your voice more trustworthy. Remember to always show confidence in your belief, and always keep an attitude that they will in fact accept your idea. And as for tapping into their subconscious, the easiest way is to use repetition, hoping that one time or another they will drop into what's called a mini trance, in which they are more susceptible to your ideas. How to convince people. People spend at least 10 minutes a day convincing other people of their ideas and vision. It is important because it can help you in your career and your personal life. It's a fact that successful people at some point had to convince other people of their ideas, because you have to start small if you want to get somewhere. Here are a few tips for those special moments. Use them wisely. Use facts or fake them. This is something people learn in high school these days. When you're defending your point, make sure you use facts to back them up. I think I'm good for the job because I make people around me feel good. This is a bad argument. Instead, convert it to something along the lines of this. I think I'm good for the job because in the past, people in my team have shown a 10% productivity increase. Basically, you're saying the same thing, but the way you tell it makes all the difference. Make sure you're using facts or try to fake them if you don't have any. The second argument could very well be fake or slightly exaggerated. How can one measure 10% productivity increase? But in the spur of the moment, arguments and things that look like them will definitely help your case. Show passion. You will want to be 100% behind your idea. People aren't convincing when they say that they're prepared to settle for less. Instead, you should say, "This is the best idea, period." But how can you show passion these days? Well, for starters, don't settle easily. Keep discussing it until you think there's no way but to settle. And secondly, memorize some key sentences. These are pre-thought of sentences that shows pure passion. Take your time writing these sentences and make them as strong and mythical as possible. For example, this is a decent sentence when you're introducing something radical. People will use this product and say, "It is something special, and I'll want to use it more." And that's pretty magical. Now that sentence is really out of the top of my head. Take your time and find those mythical ways of expressing your passion. Glow quality. People want to get that feeling that you're important and one of a kind. To achieve this, you need to glow quality and refinesse in your every move. Use your hands to emphasize points. Wear your best clothes, preferably from a top-notch brand. And if only you can use quality products. So drive a Mercedes, use an Apple MacBook, and tell time on your expensive watch. Most people won't manage this step, and that's okay. But whatever you do, try to give the impression that you mean business and that you're one of a kind. These steps will help to convince other people of your ideas and visions. Whether it's on work or a casual meeting with friends, it's time to take the initiative. It's time to potentially do something huge. Think of these tricks next time your ideas are on the line. Ways to persuade people to do more for you. Persuasion. It's something we need to be able to use every day, even if it's only to persuade our partners, spouses, to put out the washing. Here are some fun ways in which you can persuade others to do things for you. Ask nicely. Boring, predictable, but it works. It's more difficult to refuse someone who asks nicely. Use please, thank you. Express your gratitude after the event. Do something for them before you need it. It's very difficult to refuse someone who has already done something for you. Make it a habit to be kind. It comes back to you. Be careful that you don't do for them what you would like done for you. Observe them to see what they like and enjoy, and then do that for them. Ask and be willing to accept no. Oddly enough, if you ask nicely and you're willing to accept no as an answer, more often than not, the answer is yes. If you find that difficult, ask yourself, what would be the worst likely thing that could happen if you are refused? Could you live with it? Probably. Also, if you graciously accept no, it means that when you ask again, the answer is more likely to be yes. Be honest. Honesty has a very disarming quality. If you openly admit that you want something for your own benefit, people respond to that. And it's so unusual that people are often God-smacked. What's in it for them? This doesn't have to be something tangible. But if you emphasize the benefit to them of what you want, your efforts are more likely to be persuasive, or promise something in return and then deliver. Get someone who has a better relationship with them than you to ask. If you have ever asked someone out via your friend, you have done this. Ladies, use would, not could, like this. Would you get the shopping, please? Is a lot more effective than, could you get the shopping, please? When making a request of the male in your life, as long as you say it in a light tone, gritted teeth tends to undermine your persuasive powers in this situation. Ask permission. Before you ask someone something, ask if they have time to listen to your request. You are immediately indicating your respect for their time. Eliminate obstacles. Identify what might stop them and think of ways to eliminate them. Mention them in your request. For example, if you want a day off, you could say that you have already asked someone else to cover and that your work is up to date. Make it easy and fun. If you want someone to do something for you, eliminate all the obstacles to them doing it. For example, if you want someone to attend a fundraising night, make sure they know all the relevant details and don't have to be contacting you again for information. Express appreciation for what people do already. The best way to get people to do more for you is to notice and appreciate what they are already doing. Thanking your nearest and dearest for the household stuff they do already means that they will probably be more open to any other requests you make of them. Learn hypnosis. If everything else fails, try hypnosis. If Paul McKenna can convince people they are a donkey, just think what you could do. Persuasion versus manipulation. People don't like to be sold, but they do like to buy. How do you invite someone to happily buy from you? How do you generate the sale? The best way to have someone trust you enough to buy from you or join your team is to gently enter the conversation that is already going on in their head. This way, you will assist your prospect and give them the right information so that they will convince themselves that they need your service. There are many sales skills and manipulation techniques that people use to develop rapport with prospects on a surface level. But the most powerful way to influence and persuade is to know what they are thinking, how they are feeling, what they want, and what problems they want solved, specifically in the area of expertise. Unless you are a mind reader, the best way to do this is by asking open-ended, empowering, leading questions. Although this leads to rapport building and pleasant conversation, in order to influence in the direction you wish to go, the specific open-ended question would be to find out where they wish to improve their life and link that with the benefits and features of your product, your service, and your why. People love stories. We have been listening to stories since we were kids. Often, the most powerful story to persuade, not force. Persuade someone is to share with them your own personal story about why you are in this business and the benefits you, your family, and your clients have derived. It may sound cliched, but it really helps to be a product of the product. and have valid testimonials that are relevant to the answers you elicited when you asked your specific leading open-ended questions. People have an inherent desire to believe that the product they are buying will do what it promises, and if you can find out what they want and show your product will accomplish that end result, your prospects will convince themselves they need your service. And if you have influenced them well, they will become raving fans and convince others to use your services. The main difference between persuasion and manipulation is persuasion will always leave people wanting more because you are going with the person's inherent desires. Using persuasion, you will not have to close a sale because the only logical and emotional conclusion is to do business with you, is inviting and leads to long-term results by creating win-win scenarios, is a conscious activity as it involves a purposeful intent. You are thinking ahead of time and applying a certain set of techniques to get a specific result that is of true benefit to the prospect. Manipulation. To control or influence a person or situation cleverly, unfairly, or unscrupulously. Can work very well in the short term, but gets caught out and will always be found out. Techniques are guilt, fear, intimidation, ego attack, regret, forcing a desire to be liked or loved, and lies. How does it feel when some know-it-all tells you what you should do? Or some con man pulls the wool over your eyes? You may feel energetically and emotionally drained, used, or even violated. If you truly want to succeed in any area of business and life, the best way is to create true win-win situations for all people involved by using the principles and the art of persuasion. Persuasion can open any door to put you in the kind of situations you want to be in as a business person. Persuasion without integrity is just a fancy name for manipulation, in case you're not clear on the difference. Manipulation includes making people feel responsible for your success and happiness, making people do something that they obviously don't want to do, making people believe a lie so they will do things your way, and making people feel inadequate unless they see the world the way you do. Manipulators use the emotions of people against them, destroying trust in the process. People use manipulation because they have nothing better to sell. What manipulators offer the world is not worthwhile, or they wouldn't need manipulation to offer it. Manipulation makes the life unavailable and sinks everyone it hits. Persuasion, in contrast, merely attempts to show people that they're responsible for their own success and happiness. Persuasion tries to help people find the courage to do what they need to do, to see the consequences of their actions, and to choose their actions wisely. People use persuasion because it helps them to present what they have to offer in terms easiest for others to digest. Persuasion simply helps you to get a fair hearing from an otherwise overly emotional human being. In persuasion, whether or not people choose to digest what you have to offer them remains their choice. You must never deny people their right to choose for themselves. Your success in influencing another will ultimately depend on how much they value your offering. The more you offer them, the more they will value you. Keep that in mind as you attempt persuasion throughout your life. The difference between persuasion and manipulation has been a subject of debate for literally thousands of years. In ancient Greece during the 4th century BC, the father of persuasion, Aristotle, opposed a group of teachers known as the sophists. The sophists provided instructions in various disciplines, but become infamous for their teaching of rhetoric. Aristotle clashed with the sophists over the fact that they did not care about truth, but would promote any idea for a fee. Aristotle asserted that the sophists were engaging in manipulation because they intentionally deceived people and caused harm. Today, the debate between persuasion and manipulation rages on. In fact, many confess that they have a hard time distinguishing between the two. Yet understanding the distinction is vital because it will guide you in influencing others ethically and equip you with knowledge to recognize manipulative messages. Why persuasion is good. To accurately discern the difference between persuasion and manipulation, it is essential to understand the ethics that undergird persuasion. There are some communication theorists who have declared that persuasion is ethically neutral. That is to say that persuasion is neither good nor bad, but merely an impartial process. Through the persuasive method, an idea is put forth with evidence, and a person is allowed to freely choose to either accept or reject that persuasive appeal. Persuasion does indeed involve moving people to a position they don't currently hold, but not by begging or cajoling. Instead, it involves careful preparation, the proper framing of arguments, the presentation of vivid supporting evidence, and the effort to find the correct emotional match with your audience. The belief that persuasion is an honorable and effective means of arriving at truth is seen by the fact that it is the basis for modern economics, counseling practices, and the legal system. In addition, persuasion is also the foundation of democracy. Persuasion is ingrained with human communication. When communicating, people both intentionally and unintentionally promote certain beliefs and behaviors. Consequently, persuasion is not a matter of choice. It is inherent in social interaction. In fact, it is so persuasive in human communication that at times it becomes almost invisible. At its core, persuasion is the pursuit of truth. It is through persuasion that positive change occurs. For example, persuasive messages have been scientifically proven to prompt high school students to refrain from smoking, increase life-saving blood donations, and prevent youth from joining gangs. Persuasion helps forge peace between nations. Persuasion helps open up closed societies. Persuasion is crucial to the fundraising efforts of charities and philanthropic organizations. Persuasion convinces motorists to buckle up when driving or to refrain from driving when they've had too many drinks. Persuasion is used to convince an alcoholic or drug-dependent family member to seek professional help. Persuasion is how the coach of an underdog team inspires the players to give it their all. Persuasion is a tool used by parents to urge children not to accept ride from strangers or to allow anyone to touch them in a way that feels uncomfortable. In short, persuasion is the cornerstone of a number of positive pro-social endeavors. Very little of the good that we see in the world could be accomplished without persuasion. Though the goodness of persuasion and the fact that it is embedded within human nature is not what causes people concern. What causes anxiety is the corruption of persuasion. To be sure, when persuasion is distorted, it can become manipulative, which is dangerous. Through manipulation, con artists, cult leaders, and dictators have abused, enslaved, and even massacred millions. However, as detrimental as manipulation is, it should never be confused with persuasion. Manipulation is perversion of persuasion. It is not concerned with truth, but rather deceit. Aristotle commented on this in his acclaimed work, Rhetoric, when he emphasized an abuse of the rhetorical faculty can work great mischief. The same charge can be brought against all good things save virtue itself, and especially against the most useful things such as strength, health, wealth, and military skill. Rightly employed, they work the greatest blessings, and wrongly employed, they work the greatest harm. Consequently, the pertinent question is, how can you distinguish between persuasion and manipulation? The following are the three straightforward yet reliable ways that you can analyze if a message is manipulative. Intention. Intention is a primary factor in judging whether a request is manipulative. If a person attempts to present an idea or behavior that is not in the best interest of another, they are engaging in manipulation. Sadly, this is all too common. People frequently fall into the trap of abusing others in the pursuit of what they desire. One of the root causes of this Machiavellian perspective is not viewing others with equality. The renowned philosopher Immanuel Kant wrote about this mindset when he suggested that the foundational precept of morality is treating a person as a human being and not as a thing. Withholding truth. Manipulation involves distorting or withholding truth. Often, this is seen through exaggerating the advantages of a behavior, idea, or product. It was this form of manipulation that prompted the phrase caveat emptor, which is Latin for buyer beware, to become prevalent. The phrase was particularly widespread during those historical periods when there was little accountability for sellers. The saying was a warning to potential buyers to be leery of those selling goods and to make sure that they verified before making a purchase and that the quality of the product was identical to the claims made by the seller. Even today, most people have experienced being told about the features or benefits of a product or service, and then after purchasing it realize they had been misled. This is wrong, as anything other than the honest representation is blatant manipulation. Coercion. Coercion is the third and most obvious component of a manipulative appeal. It is the removal of free choice. the ultimatum, do it or else. In contrast, persuasion involves influence, but never force. A defining characteristic of persuasion is free choice. At some level, the individual must be capable of accepting or rejecting the position that has been urged of him or her. Therefore, an invitation that one is unable to say no to is not persuasive in nature, but is coercive and accordingly manipulative. Persuasion, men versus women. Gender does affect persuasion. This is because of the various kinds of emotional and intellectual differences between men and women. It is usually accepted that the straightforward and to-the-point approach of men are more fruitful in the realm of persuasion than the approaches of women, which are usually incorporated with the element of emotion. Perhaps one of the primary differences between men and women is males are visually stimulated creatures. No surprise there. Of course, it is easy to brand men as being shallow and sex-mad, but it's not our fault. We are programmed by our DNA to find healthy hosts for our children. I know that doesn't sound very romantic, but Mother Nature is no-nonsense sort of girl. Back when we were cavemen and before the advances of medical sciences, the only way to assess health was by looking at what was in front of us. Don't forget that back then, if you made it past 30 years old, you were decrepit. So if you were a young woman of childbearing age, which looked healthy, you were, and still are, genetically attractive to the human male. They say men are led by the contents of their underpants. That view is a little unfair. Men are influenced by what they see, and you can't blame them for that. As a result, many men are willing to sacrifice intelligence, personality, and even overall compatibility with favor of looks. Because men are programmed to work on such a simple measurement of attractiveness, they operate in a black and white way. They look at women and they are either attracted to them or they are not. The whole process takes less than 7 seconds. This is just one of the primary differences between men and women. The huge mistake that guys make is they assume that women operate in the same way. They don't. An attraction for a woman is not a binary option. There are hundreds of shades of gray in between black and white for women. This is why I say that men are a switch and women are a dial. If you are a confirmed feminist, you may not like this, but there's not a lot that you could do about it. Females are programmed to find reliable alpha males to father their children. They're not looking for a weak, lower member of the pack who's going to disappear at the first opportunity. The genetic code is looking for robust, powerful, and confident males who are the top of the totem pole looking down on the pack, not the other way around. The differences between men and women. Now, of course, you can't look at someone and see all those qualities in the space of a few seconds. You have to get to know them, and slowly you will uncover the value, or lack of, within. This quirk of evolution is why women will sacrifice looks for success, money, position, and power. How many times have you seen a fat, ugly millionaire with a stunningly attractive wife? We like to throw insults at these women too. Some of them are gold diggers, and others have sincere intentions. So there are differences between men and women. No huge shock there. However, make a significant mistake by assuming the other opposite sex feels the same way that they do. Men focus heavily on how they look. Big muscles are considered the epitome of attractiveness for a lot of guys. Women get frustrated because guys don't pick up on all of the emotions in those shades of gray between black and white. Understanding how human beings respond and react to life does not mean you are out to manipulate them. If it does, nonetheless, allow you to communicate in a much more powerful and attractive way. For example, because men are so binary in their thinking, they tend to fall in love quicker than women. Obviously, I'm talking about the context of two people who are both looking for a relationship, and not a one-sided situation. All too often, the male is only looking for sex, and the woman thinks it's going somewhere long-term. Of course, it does happen the other way around too, but the default is for the man to be less committed. When a man loves a woman, when a man decides he likes a woman and wants to get into a long-term relationship with her, it is usually the male who uses the L word first, or at the very least, thinks it first. This is because a lot less data is processed to arrive at that decision that is going on inside the mind of a female. Women are looking for something a bit deeper and more complicated in the man they settle down with. They want to see how he handles himself in various situations. They will most likely want to witness how he is with their friends, if he has any friends of his own. What is his attitude towards animals and children? Does he treat people with respect, and would he defend her if the need arose? Nice guys finish last, but why? Nice guys all over the planet have forever been frustrated that girls seem to go after the bad boys, and then come complaining that he treated them poorly. These shy boys are generally confused why any girl would be attracted to guys who are such obvious jerks, especially when there is a loving, attentive guy sitting right next to her, diligently listening to her tales of woe. Does she not realize I love her and I would never treat her like that? They wonder. Yes, she knows. Of course she knows. What nice guys don't realize is what women say they want in a man, and what they find attractive are not always the same thing. Women are attracted to bad boys because these guys exude confidence and self-esteem. They are at the top of the totem pole looking down on the rest of the pack. They are alpha males, and genetic dictates that they are reliable providers and ergo good father material. Where are you on the totem pole? Meanwhile, the nice guy is patiently drying her eyes and agreeing how awful it all is. He would do anything for her, and she knows it. He has placed himself beneath her on the totem pole of attractiveness and has failed to push himself past her evolutionary filters. Now, you may perhaps wonder why women stay with these douchebags long after they realize that all of the self-confidence and bad attitude was not such a positive trait after all. All negative behavior comes from fear and not strength, as it can at first appear. For example, the school bully usually is not the super tough, carefree individual you might assume. There is normally some pain inside him that he's trying to push away. Obviously, he's going about it entirely the wrong way, but for the most part, we are all doing the best we can with all the resources we have available. Emotional differences between men and women. Another one of the differences between men and women is women are deeply in touch with their emotions. What they love is a strong man who they believe they can improve. When a man they are attracted to reveals vulnerability, the inbuilt mothering nature kicks in. They want to help him become even stronger and better. When a woman starts caring on this level, it very quickly escalates to love. This is why so many women stay with aggressive and inattentive men. They understand that the negative character traits are coming from the frightened child inside, and they believe they could help just given a chance. Resisting persuasion. Being persuaded is something that happens to all of us at various times. The problem is that many of us later regret having been taken in and wish we were more skilled at resisting the smooth talk of others. We live in a society that thrives on people's inability to resist persuasion. Whether that's your boss convincing you to stay late, a company advertising its new product, or your mother's suggestion not to get that nose ring, we are consistently assaulted with others' attempt to change our attitudes and behavior. However, susceptibility to persuasion can be a dangerous thing. In our world, others tend to value their own interests more than yours, and that can result in buying things you never wanted or giving in to requests that really aren't fair. So, instead of being convinced to act contrary to your own wishes and desires, let's talk tactics to make you invulnerable to others' manipulation. Often, we enter situations where we know the other person is going to try to persuade us, and in these cases, there are some steps you can take ahead of time to reduce their influence. First, make sure you're well rested. Research shows that when people are mentally tired, they're more easily persuaded. A big part of resisting persuasion is being able to counter-argue the persuasive attempt. In this regard, consider having a coffee before engaging with your persuader. That boost of energy can provide extra push to combat the speaker's influence. However, having the energy to defend your pre-held beliefs is only half of the battle. If you don't want to be persuaded, you need to be confident in the attitude you already hold. For example, if your significant other wants to purchase something the two of you can't really afford, being certain in your stance will make you better at resisting. In this effect, try to connect the belief that you hold, that is, the belief the other person is trying to change, to a component of your self-concept. For example, if we return to the instance where your partner wants to buy something you don't, connect your stance on this matter to your self-concept of being a responsible person. That is, rather than thinking about how you oppose this singular purchase, consider how it reflects on your overall identity as a mature and consensuous individual. Along these lines, when someone tries to convince you to do something you're opposed to doing, instead of saying, "I can't do this," say, "I don't do this." By saying don't, you're connecting this instance of persuasion to your personal identity. And when people try to convince you of something based on your self-concept, they're much less likely to be successful. However, not only can you use your mind to resist persuasion, but you can also use your body. Research shows that when listeners stare at the eyes of the persuader, they are less convinced by the message than if you're looking elsewhere. Scientists suggest that prolonged eye contact can produce feelings of combativeness or threat in the listener. From our evolutionary animal roots, eye contact signals challenge, so when we engage it while conversing, it makes us subsequently less perceptive to the speaker's influence. And while staring down your persuader to try to keep from smiling or nodding your head, vast amounts of research show that thoughts in your head can be influenced by the actions of our body. For example, research shows that nodding your head while listening to a persuasive message actually makes you more convinced of it. Thus, if you refrain from smiling or nodding while the speaker tries to cajole you, your brain will infer from your body that you're not very convinced. Plus, the speaker, him or herself, will react to those cues from your body language, reducing their own confidence in the message from which they're trying to convince you. So the next time you think someone is going to try to persuade you, or you believe they're already attempting it, use some of these validated tricks from psychological research to believe and act as you wish to do. Effective resistance can be used to ward off unwanted persuasion, but inappropriate resistance can close a person off to meaningful changes. Skepticism, reactance, and inertia are three kinds of resistance that work in different ways to limit persuasion. People can do many things to increase or to decrease their own or other people's resistance to persuasion. Resistance to persuasion is not just one single thing. One encounters three kinds of resistance: skepticism, reactance, and inertia. Skepticism is resistance to the content of the message. Skepticism focuses on the logic and evidence of the arguments in the message and produces a desire to critically evaluate and refute those arguments. Reactance refers to the negative reaction people have to someone else telling them what to think or do. Reactance is resistance to the influence attempt itself. The contrariness produced by reactance leads people to counter the persuasion, no matter what it advocates, and to re-establish their freedom to think by choosing the opposite. Inertia is an objection to change itself, no matter which change is advocated. With inertia, they aren't interested in the change. They just want to keep things the way they are. This has been Persuasion, Manipulation and Mind Deception Exposed. Written by Norton Raven. Narrated by Stephen Lowe. Copyright 2017 by Norton Raven. Production copyright 2018 by Norton Raven.